Simone married her college sweetheart Trevor in her mid-20s. She was a warm-hearted black American woman from the Midwest, and he was a charming white American man who promised her the world. In the early days, their love was vibrant and full of hope. They moved to a cozy suburban town and dreamed of starting a family. But as the years passed, those dreams were met with heartbreak. After months of trying to conceive, doctor visits and prayerful nights, no pregnancy came. The word infertility cast a dark shadow over their once happy home. Trevor's attitude changed gradually but dramatically. At first, he was supportive, holding Simone through tears after each negative pregnancy test and assuring her they'd keep trying. However, as time went on, his patience wore thin. Subtle accusations crept into their conversations. He never outright called her infertile in those early days, but Simone could feel his disappointment. Each month that passed without a positive result added tension between them. In social gatherings, Trevor's demeanor shifted too. When friends would innocently ask, "When are you two having kids?" Simone would force a smile and say they were working on it. Trevor, however, began to withdraw or change the subject coldly. Behind closed doors, he started making hurtful remarks like, "Maybe some people just aren't meant to be parents," while looking pointedly at Simone. Each comment was a dagger in her heart, deepening her sense of failure and guilt. Trevor's family, particularly his mother, only made things worse. His mother had always been polite to Simone, but Simone sensed an underlying tension. Being an interracial couple in a small town wasn't without its challenges, and although no one said it outright, Simone sometimes felt she had to prove she was good enough for Trevor's family. When the couple's fertility struggles became apparent, Trevor's mother started dropping insensitive comments. "It's such a shame. Our family has always been so fertile," she said once over dinner, patting Trevor's hand. "I was hoping for grandchildren by now. Maybe it's time to consider other options, or other paths." Simone understood the veiled message. She was the problem, the outsider who couldn't continue their family line. The pressure mounted. Trevor became more distant, often coming home late from work or finding excuses to avoid conversations about fertility treatments or adoption. Simone suggested seeing a specialist together or couples therapy, hoping to save their marriage and find a solution, but Trevor brushed off the ideas. He grew colder and more resentful each day. Finally, the breaking point came in a heated argument on a rainy night. Trevor came home to find Simone looking through IVF clinic brochures at the kitchen table. Instead of hope, his face showed frustration. He slammed the mail down and blurted out, "I can't do this anymore, Simone. I'm tired of all this failure." His voice was laced with cruelty as he continued, "Maybe we should just accept it's never going to happen. Maybe I'm not supposed to waste my life on this." Simone's eyes welled up with tears as she softly asked, "Waste? Your life? Is that what you think our marriage is?" Trevor, fueled by months of pent-up bitterness, replied harshly, "A marriage without children isn't what I signed up for. I wanted a family, a real family. I have that right." The implications stabbed at Simone. If she couldn't give him children, in his mind their marriage was meaningless. Despite the pain, she tried to reason with him, reminding him of their love, of vows to stand by each other in sickness and in health, in good times and bad. But Trevor's mind was made up. In that charged moment, he revealed something he had been hiding. He'd been confiding in a female colleague, Marissa, who understood him and wanted the same things he did. Simone realized with horror that Trevor had emotionally, and perhaps physically, checked out of the marriage long before this fight. Within weeks, divorce papers were served. Numb and devastated, Simone signed them quietly. There was little fight left in her. Her spirit was crushed under the weight of feeling inadequate and betrayed. At the final divorce hearing, Trevor looked relieved, almost eager, while Simone fought back tears. He had already moved on in his heart. Rumors soon reached her that Trevor was dating Marissa, the same colleague he'd mentioned. It hurt, but Simone tried to block it out and focus on putting the pieces of her life back together. In the aftermath, the once confident and joyful Simone felt utterly broken. Fertility struggles had not only taken away her dream of motherhood at that time, but also the man she loved. She moved away from the small town they'd lived in, seeking space to heal. The marriage that once was her fairy tale had shattered, leaving her with scars and a lingering sense of unfulfilled longing. However, unknown to Trevor or anyone else at that time, Simone's story was far from over, and life was about to take a surprising turn that neither of them could have imagined. Now, before we continue with Simone's incredible journey, if you're new here, welcome to the family. This channel is all about real stories of resilience, karma, and people who refuse to let life break them. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you never miss a story. Trust me, you're going to want to see what happens when Simone walks into that reunion, because what Trevor thought was his moment to shine. Let's just say, life had other plans. Also, drop a comment right now and let me know, have you ever had someone underestimate you, only to prove them completely wrong? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. Now let's get back to Simone, because her life is about to change in ways nobody saw coming. After the divorce, Simone chose to start fresh in a neighboring state. She settled in a modest apartment in a small city, carving out a new life one day at a time. The early days were tough. She often cried herself to sleep, grappling with the dual loss of her husband and the children she never had. Every baby shower invitation from a friend, every mother pushing a stroller on the street, felt like salt in an open wound. But Simone was determined not to let tragedy define her. Inch by inch, she rebuilt her confidence. She landed a rewarding job as a social media manager for a community non-profit, where her creativity and voice could shine. Her colleagues appreciated her dedication and her warm personality. For the first time in a long while, she felt valued outside of her role as someone's wife or potential mother. Months turned into a year. During that time, Simone pursued hobbies she had set aside during marriage. She joined a local art class, finding solace in painting, and started jogging in the mornings, which did wonders for her peace of mind. With each small accomplishment, completing a 5K run, displaying a painting at a community center, her heart healed a little more. She was rediscovering herself, independent of the labels of wife or mother that had once weighed so heavily on her. Then came a life-changing surprise. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, Simone started feeling unwell. She had bouts of nausea in the mornings and found herself unusually tired. Initially, she dismissed it as lingering stress, or perhaps the flu. But when the symptoms persisted, a quiet thought crept into her mind, one she barely dared to acknowledge: could I be pregnant? It seemed impossible given all the struggles she and Trevor had, but Simone's period was late. With a trembling hand and a racing heart, she bought a pregnancy test. She nearly collapsed on the bathroom floor when she saw the result: positive. In disbelief, she took another test, and then a third, all positive. Simone's eyes overflowed with tears, but this time they were tears of a confusing blend of joy and fear. How could this be true? After all the times she had prayed for this moment, it was happening when she was alone. The doctors had never given a definitive reason for the infertility, they suspected. It might be a mix of stress and hormonal imbalance, but nothing was conclusive. Perhaps the stress of the marriage had been a factor, or perhaps it was just fate's mysterious timing. Seeking confirmation and medical guidance, Simone visited a doctor in her new city. An ultrasound not only confirmed the pregnancy but delivered another shock: she was expecting twins. Simone's jaw dropped and then curled into a laugh cry of astonishment when the doctor pointed out 2 tiny heartbeats on the screen. It felt as if the universe was giving her an overflowing blessing to make up for years of emptiness. 2 babies. She was overwhelmed, but a joyful awe washed over her. In that sterile ultrasound room, Simone felt something shift inside her. A broken piece of her began to mend. She placed a hand on her belly and whispered, "I already love you both so much." The pregnancy wasn't easy, especially as a single woman. There were days she battled morning sickness alone, coming home to an empty apartment without Trevor by her side to comfort her. There were nights she woke up with panic, realizing that in a few months she would have 2 tiny humans depending on her, and she'd have to do it all without a partner. But Simone was nothing if not resilient. She reached out to those who had always been her support system, her family and close friends. Her parents, upon hearing the news, were ecstatic to become grandparents and rallied around her. Her mother traveled to stay with her for a while during the later months of pregnancy, helping prepare the nursery and insisting Simone rest when she was overexerting herself. For the first time in a long time, Simone felt surrounded by love and hope rather than judgment and disappointment. Throughout her pregnancy, Simone debated whether to tell Trevor. After all, biologically the twins were his children, conceived in the final stretch of their marriage, perhaps around the time everything was falling apart. It was ironic and a little cruel how life had played out. Trevor had left her, labeling her as the one who couldn't give him a family. Yet here she was, carrying his children after the marriage was over. Simone was torn. A part of her felt he had a right to know, another part remembered the coldness in his eyes during their last fight and felt that he forfeited that right when he walked away. She decided to compose a letter to Trevor, explaining the situation. It was an emotional letter. She poured out how she discovered the pregnancy after their divorce, how she was willing to inform him so. He could be involved in the children's lives if he wished, but also making it clear she was prepared to raise them alone if necessary. Simone mailed the letter to Trevor's last known address, which was his parents' address in their hometown, and waited. Weeks passed with no response. Unbeknownst to Simone at the time, Trevor never saw the letter. He had moved in with Marissa and wasn't regularly checking mail from his old address. Perhaps if he had received it, things might have gone differently, but as fate would have it, Simone heard nothing back. Taking the silence as disinterest, she resolved to move forward on her own. In due time, Simone gave birth to 2 healthy babies, a boy and a girl. She named them Isaiah and Olivia, choosing names that felt both unique and meaningful. To her, and notably, nothing like the generic names one might expect. The moment she held them for the first time, tears streamed down her face. Isaiah had Trevor's hazel eyes and a tiny dimple on his chin. Olivia had Simone's nose and a shock of dark curly hair. They were beautiful. They were hers. In that moment, Simone realized a profound truth. She already had a family, one born from her own strength and love. It wasn't the traditional order of things, and it wasn't with the partner she once imagined, but it was perfect in its own way. Motherhood gave Simone a new sense of purpose. The early months with infant twins were exhausting beyond measure. Late-night feedings, endless diaper, changes and very little sleep, but every coo and tiny finger wrapped around hers made it worth it. She found herself singing softly to them at dawn, feeling gratitude that she'd been entrusted with these 2 little lives. The presence of Isaiah and Olivia also further mended her heart. The wounds from Trevor's abandonment started to fade as her days filled with baby giggles and the sweet chaos of raising children. By the time the twins were toddling around at about 15 months old, Simone felt like an entirely new woman. Stronger, more confident, and definitely busier. She had moved back to her hometown to be closer to her parents for support and because rent was cheaper, but she kept mostly to herself and her family circle. The gossip mill in town had quieted. Many people from her school days didn't even know. She had children now, since she wasn't active on her personal social media about it. Simone was content in her semi-private new life. She had her job, which she managed partly remote now, with the help of her mom babysitting, her painting hobby on weekends, and her 2 miracles who gave her endless love. Romance was the last thing on her mind during those months. Healing and personal growth took priority. She wasn't opposed to love if it ever knocked on her door again, but she certainly wasn't chasing it. How could she, when her hands were full of finger paints and baby bottles? And truthfully, a sliver of fear remained, fear of being hurt again, fear of a man walking out because of life's challenges. So she kept her social life modest, an occasional girls' night or a movie, outing when her parents could babysit, but nothing too entangled. Little did Simone know, the next chapter of her story, involving an unexpected reunion and a chance at new love, was about to begin, It started with a simple white envelope that arrived in her mailbox one crisp fall afternoon. Inside was an invitation that would soon propel her into a confrontation with her past and a leap toward her future. One Saturday, as Simone balanced a laundry basket on her hip and guided little Olivia away from pulling down a curtain, the doorbell rang. It was the mailman with a certified letter. Curious and a bit flustered, certified mail always made her anxious. She signed for it and immediately opened the envelope. It was an invitation to her high school's 15-year reunion, set to take place in just a month's time back in her hometown. They were hosting a weekend of events, a semi-formal gathering at the high school, gym on Friday night, and a family-friendly picnic at a local park on Saturday. Simone's initial reaction was a mix of excitement and dread. High school felt like a lifetime ago. She remembered herself as the bubbly cheerleader dating the quiet boy from the science club. Trevor had been studious and a bit nerdy back then, one of the things she found endearing. Many of her classmates she hadn't seen since graduation. Part of her was genuinely curious. How were her old friends doing? What did everyone become? Social media only told bits and pieces. But alongside that curiosity was an undercurrent of anxiety. A reunion meant possibly seeing Trevor again. They had been in the same graduating class. It's how they grew so close in the first place. If he got the invitation too, and surely he would have, would he attend? And if so, would he bring her? Simone's stomach did a little flip at the thought of Trevor walking into the reunion with Marissa, the woman he left her for. Flaunting might not have been in her vocabulary yet, but she could already imagine Trevor's smug face, proud to show off his new wife. Simone had heard through a mutual acquaintance some time ago that Trevor and Marissa got married within a year of the divorce. She also heard, and this stung at the time, that they were trying for a baby shortly after their wedding. So Trevor got what he wanted, a fertile marriage, as cruel as that phrase sounded. Simone still remembered the day she learned Marissa was pregnant. It was around the same time she herself was dealing with newborn twins. The irony was not lost on her then, and it still wasn't now. She carefully set the invitation down on the coffee table and sat on the couch, watching Isaiah and Olivia play on the living room rug with stacking cups. Olivia had managed to put a yellow cup on her head like a hat and was giggling, while Isaiah clapped his hands. The sight warmed Simone's heart and gave her a dose of courage. I'm not the same person Trevor knew, she thought. I'm stronger now. I have nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, she had everything to be proud of. 2 beautiful children, a steady job, and a newfound confidence. Why should she hide? That evening, after putting the twins to bed, Simone called her best friend from high school, Jasmine, who had also gotten the reunion invitation. Jasmine squealed in delight at hearing from Simone and immediately launched into an excited speech about how we have to go, it'll be fun. Simone laughed. Jasmine's energy was infectious as always. Still, Simone voiced her concerns. Jazz, I'm not sure about seeing Trevor. You know, with his wife and all. There was a pause, and then Jasmine replied with gentle firmness. Girl, you have every right to be there as much as anyone else. Don't let him scare you away. Besides, aren't you just a little curious to see the look on his face when he sees how amazing you're doing now? Simone smiled, imagining it. Jasmine didn't even know the half of it. She hadn't told many people, outside her family, about the twins, wanting to keep them out of gossip. She figured the reunion might be where folks found out, if it came up. After much deliberation, Simone sent in her please reply for the reunion events. She decided she would attend both the Friday night semi-formal and the Saturday picnic, but with a plan. For the Friday evening event, no kids expected there. She'd go alone, treat it as a chance to reconnect with old friends and show everyone, including Trevor, that she was thriving. As for the Saturday family picnic, she planned to bring her twins. It would be outdoors and casual, and she felt more comfortable having her babies there in a stroller where people could meet them. Part of her had a slightly mischievous thought if Trevor and Marissa were going to flaunt their new baby, or pregnancy at the reunion. How sweet would it be to quietly one-up them by introducing her children? It wasn't about competition, truly. It was about reclaiming her narrative. She was not the barren ex-wife that some might have assumed. She was a proud mother, and she had nothing to hide. In preparation for the reunion, Simone found herself feeling both nervous and excited. She treated it like a milestone in her healing journey. She went shopping for a new outfit for the Friday night event, something that would make her feel confident and beautiful. After trying on a dozen dresses, she settled on a classy deep blue dress. That hugged her figure just right and highlighted her warm brown skin tone. It was elegant with a bit of sparkle on the neckline, striking the perfect balance between sophisticated and eye-catching. When she tried it on at home with a pair of heels, even her mother said, "Wow, you look stunning. That dress was made for you." Simone hoped Trevor might see her and feel a pang of regret for ever letting her go, not out of spite. Well, maybe a tiny bit of spite, but mostly to remind herself that she was indeed desirable and worthy. Jasmine agreed to accompany Simone to the Friday event so that she wouldn't have to walk in alone. Meanwhile, Simone arranged for her parents to watch the twins on Friday night and then bring them to the picnic on Saturday to meet up with her. Her mom was more than happy to play nanny at the park while Simone socialized, and they made a plan for a grand reveal if one was warranted. Simone chuckled at her mom's enthusiasm. Grandma was ready to show off those babies as much as Simone was, if not more. As the reunion weekend approached, Simone felt the familiar flutter of butterflies in her stomach. It felt like standing on the edge of a significant moment in her life. She gave herself little pep talks while rocking the twins to sleep. "I've survived worse than an awkward reunion. I can handle this." She reminded herself of everything she'd accomplished without Trevor. The reunion was no longer about impressing old classmates. It was about proving to herself that she could confront her past without fear. And perhaps destiny had something more in store for her over that weekend. New friendships, closure, or even a hint of romance. Who could say? With her plans set and her resolve firm, Simone took a deep breath and stepped forward, into the next chapter, ready to face whatever awaited her at the reunion. The Friday night of the reunion arrived, clear and warm. Simone drove to her old high school, heart thudding in her chest with a mix of nostalgia and nerves. The school's gymnasium had been transformed into a charming event hall for the evening. Strings of twinkling lights hung. From the rafters, balloons in school colors bobbed at the entrance, and a big banner read, "Welcome back, Class of 10. He mentioned he wasn't officially in their graduating class, but the reunion committee had sent invitations to a few surrounding years as well, hoping to boost attendance. As she parked and stepped out of her car, smoothing down her blue dress, Simone caught a glimpse of herself in the windows. Reflection. She looked poised and radiant, a far cry from the uncertain young woman who had walked these halls years ago. Jasmine met her by the front doors with an excited squeal and a tight hug. "You look amazing," Jasmine gushed, stepping back to admire Simone's outfit. Jasmine herself was rocking a red jumpsuit that matched her bold personality. With a grateful smile, Simone returned the compliment. It felt good to have her friend by her side, a reassuring presence from the old days, making this less of a solo battle. They walked in together, immediately greeted by a wave of familiar yet older faces. There was the cluster of former football players, still swaggering but now sporting dad bods and receding hairlines. Near the refreshment table, a pair of women that Simone recalled as math. Club geeks were laughing over cocktails, now confident career women. As Simone moved through the crowd, several classmates lit up in recognition. "Simone! Oh my gosh, hi!" She found herself exchanging hugs and updates with people she hadn't thought about in ages. It was surreal but pleasant. Many remembered her as the cheerleader who married Trevor not long after school. Some treaded carefully around that subject. They'd heard whispers of the divorce, but Simone handled it gracefully, simply saying, "Yes, things didn't work out with Trevor, but I'm doing really well now," and steering the conversation to her job or asking about their lives. Short paragraphs of small talk flowed easily, boosting Simone's confidence with each friendly encounter. About half an hour into the event, as Simone was chatting with an old friend by a display of nostalgic yearbook photos, she felt a hush fall over a section of the room. She didn't need to turn around to know why. Trevor had arrived, and he wasn't alone. Curiosity mingled with the old hurt in her heart, but Simone steeled herself and finally glanced over her shoulder. Trevor stood at the entrance, looking dapper in a tailored navy suit, his arm wrapped around a visibly pregnant Marissa. Marissa wore a form-fitting gold-colored dress that showcased her round belly like a badge of honor. They made a striking couple, and their entrance was certainly calculated to draw attention. Simone watched as a few of their former classmates hurried over to greet them. She couldn't quite hear over the music, but she saw the proud grin on Trevor's face and the way Marissa's hand rested on her stomach. It was clear they intended to flaunt their happiness. Simone's throat tightened involuntarily. Even though she had expected this moment, it still hit hard to actually see him again with the woman he replaced her with. Jasmine gently touched Simone's arm, leaning in to whisper, "You okay?" Simone drew a slow breath and nodded. "I will be," she whispered back, forcing a small smile. She decided she wouldn't approach them immediately. There was no need to rush into a confrontation. Instead, she continued talking with others, always aware at the edge of her vision of Trevor and Marissa moving through the room, working the crowd. It didn't take long for Trevor to start doing what Simone feared, boasting. At one point, Simone was near enough to overhear him talking to a couple of former classmates by the punch bowl. Trevor's voice had that performative cheeriness that rang false to her ears. She knew his tones well enough. "Yeah, we're expecting our first this December," he said loudly enough that people nearby could hear. "We're just so blessed. I mean, starting a family is everything to us. Marissa and I always knew we wanted children right away." Marissa smiled and added in a syrupy tone, "Children are such a blessing. We're so lucky we found each other." Simone could sense the subtext, even if their audience couldn't. Trevor was indirectly emphasizing that with Marissa, he could have kids right away, whereas with Simone, he could not. It stung, but instead of breaking down, Simone felt a spark of indignation. How dare he come here and act like all those years with her meant nothing? And how dare he insinuate, even obliquely, that she was the reason he hadn't become a father then? She bit her lip, holding back the urge to march up and say something. Not yet, she thought. Don't give him the satisfaction of seeing you rattled. She stepped away to get some air on the other side of the gym, where an open door let in a cool evening breeze. On her way, a friendly voice called out, "Simone, is that you?" She turned to see Marcus, one of her old high school acquaintances, approaching with a broad smile. Marcus had been a couple of years ahead of her in school, but they'd interacted in a music club back then. He was a tall, handsome black man with an easygoing demeanor. She remembered he played the guitar and had a voice like butter. She hadn't seen him in ages. He looked even more distinguished now with a neat beard and stylish glasses. They hugged and started chatting. Marcus explained he had returned to town recently to take care of his aging father after years away, working in Chicago as an IT consultant. Simone shared a brief overview of her own journey, the job, moving back for family. She didn't yet mention the twins, as the noise and her emotions about Trevor's presence made her cautious. Marcus, oblivious to the drama unfolding with Trevor, complimented Simone. "You haven't changed a bit. Still as beautiful and vibrant as ever." Simone felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. It had been a long time since a man, other than relatives, had spoken to her like that. They drifted towards a quieter corner, laughing about a funny memory from music club. Marcus joked, "Remember when you and I tried to do that duet, and I totally botched the lyrics? I was so embarrassed." Simone giggled. "Oh my gosh, yes. We ended up improvising a whole new song on the spot." It felt good to laugh genuinely, a welcome distraction from the tension across the room. As they talked, Jasmine eventually excused herself to mingle elsewhere, shooting Simone a knowing wink before leaving, clearly noticing the chemistry brewing. Marcus then asked softly, "So, I heard you and Trevor split up a while back. I hope you're doing okay. You seem great, but I just wanted to say that..." Simone appreciated the concern in his tone. "I am, actually. It was really hard for a long time, but I've come out the other side stronger," she replied sincerely. Thank you for asking. Marcus nodded, and for a moment it seemed he wanted to say more. His eyes held a kindness and perhaps understanding of heartbreak. Instead, he simply offered, "If you need a friend tonight for any awkward moments, I'm here. Reunions can dredge up a lot." Simone smiled gratefully. "I'd like that," she said. And indeed, it was comforting to know that not everyone in the room was judging or gossiping. Some, like Marcus, were just happy to reconnect. Meanwhile, Trevor's grand entrance tour continued. It seemed he and Marissa were making sure to talk to everyone, especially those who knew both him and Simone from the old days. More than once, Simone glanced over to see him stealing looks in her direction. Was that uncertainty on his face? Perhaps he hadn't expected her to show up, or to look so composed and radiant if she did. Simone stood a little taller whenever she felt his eyes, refusing to appear anything less than confident. Trevor eventually made his way to a small circle of Simone's old friends who were chatting not far from where she and Marcus stood. Though Simone was engaged in conversation with Marcus, her ears perked up as she caught bits of what Trevor was saying to the group nearby. He was in storytelling mode. "So then we decided, why wait? We got married in a beautiful ceremony on the beach. Mom was thrilled. She adores Marissa. And now, with the baby on the way, it's like everything fell into place perfectly." Simone noticed Marissa giggle and lean into Trevor, adding, "Trevor's going to be such a good daddy. He's already assembling cribs and baby-proofing the house." One of the old friends in that circle glanced over towards Simone, clearly aware of the awkward dynamic, and responded to Trevor with a polite but non-committal, "That's wonderful. I'm happy for you." Another friend, perhaps a bit oblivious, blurted out, "Hey, whatever happened between you and Simone anyway? You guys were like the it couple back then." Simone stiffened, her hand tightening around her drink. Marcus raised an eyebrow, noticing her reaction, and followed her gaze to see what was going on. Trevor cleared his throat. For a split second, Simone wondered if he'd take any accountability or at least be diplomatic. But then, with a slight shrug and a rehearsed sad smile, Trevor said, "We just grew apart. It happens. Not everyone is meant to walk the same path forever." Marissa pursed her lips in a sympathetic expression and chimed in softly, "It's always sad when people want different things." In the end, it worked out for the best. She rested a hand on her belly, the gesture speaking volumes without words. Simone felt a flash of anger. Different things? As if she hadn't wanted a family. As if it wasn't him who left because of that very thing. She took a deep breath and reminded herself to stay composed. Marcus gently touched her elbow, grounding her, and whispered, "You don't have to listen to this." But Simone shook her head subtly. "No, I'm okay," she whispered back. I knew he'd pull something like this, and in a way, hearing Trevor's self-serving version of their story only fueled her determination to set the record straight when the time was right. The conversation near the punch bowl continued, and Simone kept half an ear on it while maintaining her chat with Marcus. Now one of the classmates exclaimed cheerfully, "Well, I'm sure Simone's doing great too. I haven't gotten to catch up with her yet tonight." Trevor's response was a low mutter, but Simone heard it like a bullet. "Yeah, I hope so. I heard she moved back in with her folks for a while. Hopefully she's found some happiness." The tone was condescending, as if he was implying she hadn't. Marissa added in a hushed tone that nonetheless carried, "She's so quiet on social media. Hardly any updates. I just hope she made peace and moved on." It sounded sweet on the surface, but Simone recognized pitying faux concern when she heard it. They were patronizing her, painting a picture of Simone as the tragic ex who had faded into obscurity while they shone brightly with their new life. Simone's cheeks burned, not with embarrassment, but with the effort of holding back her retort. Marcus looked at her, concern in his eyes. Before he could say anything, Simone gave him a tight smile. "I need a moment," she said under her breath. "Excuse me." She walked towards the bathroom to splash some water on her face and collect herself. On the way, she overheard a snippet of another conversation from behind her, likely, between two women who didn't realize she could hear. I feel so bad for Simone. You know, because of the fertility stuff. And now Trevor's having a baby. The other responded, I know. It must be hard to see him here with her pregnant. Poor thing. She's putting on a brave face though, bless her heart. Simone closed her eyes for a second, steadying the anger and hurt swirling inside. She hated that label of poor thing that some were giving her. Is that how everyone saw her? As the barren ex-wife to be pitied? No. She refused to accept that narrative. In the restroom, Simone dabbed her face lightly with a cool paper towel. She met her reflection in the mirror. Time for a pep talk. You are not a poor thing. You are strong, you are a good mother, and you know your worth, she told herself silently. They don't know your story, but they will. She straightened her posture, reapplied a touch of lip gloss, and gave herself a resolute nod. It was time to re-enter the fray, head held high. As she stepped out, she nearly bumped into Marissa, who was entering the restroom. Likely on one of her frequent trips, pregnancy bladder, Simone thought wryly. Marissa looked momentarily startled, then gave a polite smile. Up close, Simone could see the other woman properly. Marissa was pretty, with strawberry blonde hair and bright green eyes. She looked every bit the glowing, expectant mother. For a moment, the two women stood face to face in awkward silence. Simone mustered a civil tone. Hello, Marissa. Marissa responded kindly, perhaps overly so. Simone, hi. It's good to see you. She hesitated, then added, You look well. There was something in Marissa's eyes. Was it actual sincerity or thinly veiled smugness? Simone couldn't be sure. She decided not to linger to find out. Thank you. Congratulations on your pregnancy, she said evenly, giving a polite nod and moving past. As she walked away, Marissa said softly, Thank you. Take care. There was no overt malice, but the encounter left Simone's stomach churning. She realized that while she harbored bitterness towards Trevor, she felt oddly neutral about Marissa. Perhaps it was because Simone didn't know what Trevor might have told Marissa about her. For all she knew, he spun a tale where he was practically single before getting with Marissa. Or maybe Marissa knew everything and didn't care. Either way, Simone decided Marissa wasn't worth her mental energy tonight. Trevor was the one who broke vows, not this woman. Steeling herself, Simone returned to the gym. Marcus quickly spotted her and gave a little wave, having waited by a table with some snacks. Simone returned to his side, and he offered her a cup of ginger ale he'd fetched, figuring she might need something refreshing. She accepted it gratefully. You read my mind. Thank you. Marcus smiled. All good? She gave a half shrug. Getting there. The night went on, and soon it was time for the principal's brief speech, and some fun awards, you know, most changed. Since high school, couple most likely to stay together, which ironically, Simone and Trevor had won back then. Simone tried to enjoy the moments, clapping for the silly awards and taking a group photo or two. Yet she remained acutely aware of Trevor, who seemed to always be within eyesight, if not earshot. At one point, as the crowd thinned out a bit while people danced to nostalgic tunes, Trevor finally made direct eye contact with Simone across the room. There was a flicker of something in his face. Surprise, maybe a hint of guilt or discomfort. Simone met his gaze steadily. I won't be the first to look away, she thought. Eventually, Trevor broke eye contact when Marissa tugged on his arm to meet someone. It was clear he was deliberately keeping his distance from Simone, likely to avoid an awkward scene. Perhaps he expected her to be fragile or confrontational. Instead, her poise likely confused him. She wasn't giving him the satisfaction of any drama. Not yet, anyway. By the end of the evening, Simone felt proud of herself. She had survived the worst of it, seeing them, hearing the flaunting. She hadn't crumbled. In fact, as people began saying their goodbyes and heading home for the night, she realized she'd actually had a decent time catching up with old friends and talking more with Marcus. Marcus had been a true gentleman, fetching her drinks, making her laugh with jokes about their high school teachers, and even inviting her to dance when an upbeat 2000s song came on. Simone had accepted and found herself genuinely enjoying the dance. Laughter, spilling from her as Marcus did a silly throwback move from their school days. For those few minutes on the dance floor, Simone forgot all about Trevor's presence, and apparently so did others. A few friends gave them amused looks like they were already shipping this potential new couple. It made Simone blush, but she didn't mind. As the reunion event wrapped up, Trevor and Marissa slipped out a bit early, perhaps heading back to their hotel or home. Simone wasn't sure if they lived locally anymore. Simone noticed they left without saying goodbye to her, or even acknowledging her directly. Coward, she thought, though part of her was relieved not to have a forced polite chat. She knew the bigger moment might come at tomorrow's family picnic, and she would be ready. Before leaving, Marcus walked Simone to her car under the moonlit sky. The night air was cool and carried the scent of autumn leaves. They lingered by her car door, neither seemingly wanting the conversation to end just yet. Marcus scratched the back of his head, a little shyly. "So, I was thinking, tomorrow at the picnic, would you like to maybe, hang out together? I could use some company. I don't exactly have a family of my own to bring." He chuckled softly. Simone realized he was trying to find out if she was going with anyone, or if she'd be okay with him joining her. She smiled, feeling warmth in her chest at his sweetness. "I'd like that. Actually, I'll have my family with me. My parents, and—" She hesitated just a half-second, wondering if she should surprise him too or just say it. "And my kids." Marcus's eyes widened in pleasant shock. "Your kids? Plural?" A grin spread on Simone's face. It felt so good to acknowledge them openly. "Yes," she said proudly. "I have twin toddlers, a boy and a girl. They're my everything." Marcus broke into a broad smile. "Simone, that's wonderful. I had no idea. You're full of surprises." He laughed, clearly happy for her. There was no pity in his reaction, only genuine excitement. "I can't wait to meet them." Simone felt a surge of relief and gratitude. She quickly explained, "I haven't been very public about them, mostly to protect their privacy, but I'm excited to introduce them to friends now." Marcus nodded in understanding. They exchanged phone numbers and made a plan to meet at the park venue. He'd bring some treats. He joked he makes a mean potato salad, and she would bring her parents and the twins. Before parting, Marcus gently took her hand and said, "I'm really glad I ran into you tonight. You handled everything with such grace." Simone looked up at him, meeting his kind brown eyes. "Thank you. You being there made it easier." In that moment, there was a quiet spark between them. Marcus seemed to sense it too. He gave her hand a soft squeeze before letting go and saying goodnight. As Simone drove home, she felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. Tomorrow would be another big day, but now she had an ally by her side and the ultimate trump card in her pocket. Or rather, in their cribs at home, peacefully asleep. She checked on Isaiah and Olivia when she got in, kissing their foreheads as they slept, and then crawled into bed herself. Before drifting off, she whispered a little affirmation, "You got this, Simone, for you and for your babies." She slept deeply, knowing she had held her own tonight, and whatever came next, she was ready. The next afternoon was the day of the family picnic reunion event at the local park. It was a bright, sunny day with a pleasant breeze, perfect weather for an outdoor gathering. The park was already dotted with clusters of people when Simone arrived with her entourage. She wore casual but chic attire, a flowy peach-colored blouse and well-fitted jeans, comfortable enough to chase toddlers in, but still pretty. Her mom and dad walked beside her, each pushing one twin in a stroller. Isaiah and Olivia, wide-eyed at the new surroundings, babbled and pointed at colorful balloons and picnic blankets spread out on the grass. Simone had dressed them in adorable matching outfits, Isaiah in little denim overalls and Olivia in a cute yellow sundress with a denim jacket. They looked like tiny models, and of course Grandma had taken a dozen pictures before they even left the house. Simone's heart fluttered as they neared the reunion picnic area. This was it, the moment many would realize how much her life had changed. She was nervous, mostly about how Trevor would react upon seeing the children. Would he recognize them as his? The twins were about 18 months old now. Sometimes Simone caught glimpses of Trevor in Isaiah's expressions. She braced herself for potential drama. Her father, sensing her tension, patted her shoulder reassuringly. "We're right here with you, no matter what." She smiled at him appreciatively. Her parents had been her rock through everything, and she was thankful they came along. As they entered the picnic area, a few classmates noticed Simone and immediately came over, drawn by the sight of two cute toddlers as much as by Simone herself. Delight and surprise were the reactions. "Simone, you didn't tell me you had kids," one old friend exclaimed, leaning down to coo at Olivia. "They're gorgeous. Twins, really." Simone laughed, relaxing a bit in the warmth of her friend's excitement. "Yes, twins," she said proudly. "This is Olivia, and this little guy is Isaiah." The twins stared curiously at the new faces, and Isaiah reached up to one friendly woman, offering him a high five. Questions came in gentle, curious waves as more people noticed and gathered. "How old are they? What are their names?" "They look just like you, Simone," she answered happily, finding herself actually enjoying the reveal. She didn't dive into the paternity. That detail hung unspoken, but certainly. A few clever folks eyed the kids and made silent inferences. Simone simply introduced her parents and kept the focus on the present. Marcus arrived not long after, carrying a bowl covered in foil, presumably his famous potato salad. He spotted Simone and beamed, making a beeline towards her. "Hey there," he greeted warmly, then immediately knelt to greet the twins. "And who are these two good-looking munchkins?" Simone felt a blush of happiness. "Marcus, meet Olivia and Isaiah," she said. Marcus wagged his finger playfully at each child. "Hi, Olivia. Hi, Isaiah. I'm Marcus. I'm a friend of your mommy's. Wow. You two have the coolest mom." Olivia, ever social, giggled and reached out toward Marcus, who took her tiny hand gently. Isaiah shyly buried his face in Grandma's leg for a moment before peeking back out. It was a sweet scene that made Simone's heart swell. Seeing Marcus interact so naturally with her children gave her a warm, almost tender feeling. However, the pleasant moment was interrupted by the voice Simone had been half anticipating, half dreading. Well, Simone." She looked up to see Trevor standing a few feet away, Marissa at his side holding a picnic plate. It seemed word of Simone's little ones had reached them, given how news spreads in such gatherings. Someone likely rushed over to them saying, "Did you see Simone has twins?" Trevor's face was a complex mix. Surprise for sure, a flicker of what looked like confusion, or shock, and something that might have been annoyance at not knowing this before. Marissa's expression was wide-eyed with astonishment, her gaze glued to the twins. Simone straightened, instinctively placing a hand on the nearest stroller as if to guard her children. Her parents exchanged looks but stayed respectfully quiet. This was Simone's moment to handle, though she knew they had her back if needed. Marcus rose to stand beside Simone, a subtle stance of support. Trevor cleared his throat, trying to regain composure. I didn't know you had," he began, eyes darting to the twins, then back to Simone. "Twins," Simone finished for him, her tone polite but firm. "Yes, I do." She locked eyes with him, chin tilted up slightly in defiance of any pity or judgment he might try to dish out. There was an awkward beat of silence. Around them, a few other classmates pretended not to eavesdrop, but their sideways glances indicated they totally were. Marissa was the first to break the silence, offering a tentative smile. "They're adorable. Congratulations," she said. Simone noted genuine surprise and perhaps confusion in her voice. Clearly Trevor had never mentioned Simone being a mother, likely because he himself did not know. Simone gave a courteous nod. "Thank you." Trevor finally found some words, though they sounded a bit strained. "Wow, this is unexpected. I'm happy for you." He forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Boy and girl, huh? That's a handful." Simone couldn't help the slight curve of pride on her lips as she glanced at her children. "They are a blessing. A double blessing, actually." Her emphasis on double wasn't lost on anyone. Trevor shifted his weight, clearly off balance. This wasn't how he envisioned this reunion going. Perhaps in his mind he'd imagined her congratulating him on his baby, and her quietly slinking away. Instead, here she was, shining and maternal. He looked at Isaiah, who was now curiously staring up at this unfamiliar man. And that's when it seemed to click for Trevor. Isaiah's eyes, those hazel eyes just like his own. Olivia too, now peeking out from Marcus's arms. Marcus had picked her up to hold when she started getting fussy in the stroller. The sight of him holding little Olivia was endearing and not lost on onlookers. Trevor's face went a shade paler. Simone could practically see the gears turning in his head as he counted back the months and years. The timing, the features. How old are they? Trevor asked, his voice quieter, almost hesitant. Okay, pause right there. You can see it on his face, can't you? The math is mathing. The pieces are falling into place. And Simone? She's standing there, calm, composed, holding all the cards. Now, I have to ask you, before Simone drops this truth bomb, what do you think Trevor's reaction is going to be? Anger? Guilt? Denial? Drop your prediction in the comments right now. I want to see who called it. And hey, if you're watching this far and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit that button, because this channel is packed with stories just like this one. Stories about people who got their moment, their redemption, their justice. All right, let's see how Trevor handles the biggest plot twist of his life. Simone met his gaze steadily. This was the moment of truth. They're 18 months old, she replied. She watched as Trevor did the math. 18 months. That would place their conception a little over 2 years ago, which was before their divorce was finalized, in fact, right around the end of their marriage. Trevor blinked, his mouth opening, then closing as no words came. Marissa looked between them, realization dawning on her face too. Trevor, she whispered. That timeline. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Simone decided to lay it out clearly to avoid any confusion. Her tone was calm, but carried an unmistakable edge as she spoke directly to Trevor. Yes, Isaiah and Olivia are your children too, Trevor. Our children. A collective silence fell around those who were within earshot, which at this point was several people. It was as if the whole picnic paused, the distant sounds of other families, and kids playing fading under the weight of this revelation. Trevor looked like someone had doused him with cold water. Shock plastered on his face, he took a half step back, staring at the twins with new eyes. Mine. Ours. He stammered. How? Why didn't? He was struggling to form a sentence. Simone felt a mix of vindication and sorrow swirling in her. This was the confrontation she had both dreaded and needed. Yes, ours, she affirmed softly. I found out I was pregnant shortly after we separated. I tried to inform you. She glanced at Marissa for a second, not out of accusation but acknowledging her presence in this conversation. But I didn't hear back. Maybe you never got the letter. Regardless, I realized I had to do this on my own. She took a breath, steadying the tremble in her chest. I decided to focus on raising them and not chase you down. You had made it clear you'd moved on. Trevor's face flushed, whether from guilt or embarrassment. Letter? I never saw a letter, he said weakly. Simone, I would have. He cut off, not even sure what he was about to claim he would have done. Around them, a few of the eavesdropping classmates had discreetly moved away, as this was clearly a personal moment. Only Marcus, her parents and Marissa remained close, all looking varying degrees of uncomfortable, yet glued to the drama. Marissa cleared her throat softly. I think we should all sit down and talk privately, she suggested, her voice gentle, trying to diffuse the public nature of this confrontation. There was a kindness to her that Simone hadn't expected. Perhaps Marissa wasn't the villain Simone once painted her as. She looked genuinely concerned. Simone appreciated that and nodded. Let's move over there, she said, gesturing to an empty picnic table under a tree a little distance from the main crowd. She motioned for her parents and Marcus to come too. They had been her support, and she wasn't going to send them away now. Plus, she might need help with the twins during this talk. Once gathered around the picnic table, Simone's mother subtly took the twins a couple of steps away to distract them with a toy while still keeping them in sight. Marcus stood by quietly, ready to assist as needed, while Simone and Trevor sat across from each other on the wooden bench. Marissa sat beside Trevor, her brow furrowed and one hand on her belly, as if subconsciously protective of her own unborn child. Trevor finally broke the silence. I'm sorry. I'm just in shock. I really didn't know, Simone." His voice had lost its earlier bravado. He sounded more like the Trevor she once knew, the one capable of sincerity, now humbled. "Why didn't you try to call? Or message? A letter?" He shook his head like he couldn't believe he missed that. Simone maintained a composed tone, though her hands were clasped tightly in her lap. "I had no direct way to reach you. You changed your number, remember? And I wasn't exactly in a place to handle a face-to-face conversation then. The letter was all I could do." She sighed. "When you didn't respond, I took it as, well, that you didn't want to be involved." Trevor ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated, but at himself. "I never got it. I moved out of my parents' place. We were staying at Marissa's by then. Mom probably didn't forward it, or it got lost. I don't know." He looked over at the twins, who were now happily munching on some crackers Grandma produced from her magic bag. A softness came over his face as he watched them. "They're really mine?" he asked again quietly, almost in disbelief. Simone felt a slight twinge of empathy. This was a lot for anyone to take in. "Yes, DNA test if you want, but they're yours. They even have your chin dimple and eyes." She managed a tiny, wry smile. "Trevor, I wasn't with anyone else. You were my husband. Their existence doesn't change that fact." Marissa spoke up. "This must be overwhelming for both of you." "Trevor, I believe her. I mean, just look at them." She gave a shaky laugh. Simone realized Marissa's eyes were damp, perhaps from empathy or pregnancy hormones, or both. "They're beautiful." Trevor exhaled slowly, turning to Simone again. "I'm sorry," he said, and he sounded it. "I treated you horribly. I was so impatient, so cruel." His voice caught. "And now I find out that we actually—" He didn't finish, but Simone could fill in the blanks. "That we actually did have what we wanted, children, only he wasn't around to see it." Simone looked at the man she once loved, seeing genuine remorse etched on his features. This was a moment she had fantasized about at her lowest, him realizing he was wrong, regretting it. And here it was. Oddly, though, in this moment, she didn't feel triumphant. She felt sad for both of them, and relieved, and free. Mostly free. "Yes, you hurt me," she said softly. "You broke my heart, Trevor, when you left. I won't lie. I went through hell. But these two," she nodded toward the twins, "they healed me. They became my whole world." Her eyes moistened as emotion welled. "I'm not that broken woman anymore. I found strength in being their mother." Trevor swallowed hard, tears now glistening in his eyes too. "I wish I could take back what I did, what I said." He looked down, ashamed. "I know I can't. It was unforgivable, the way I discarded our marriage." Marissa rubbed his back gently, and he reached for her hand as an anchor. Simone noticed this with a keen eye. Marissa, despite everything, was supporting him in this. "I won't pretend everything is okay," Simone replied, her voice calm but firm. "But I do appreciate the apology." She sighed. "The reality is, we have 2 children together. What's done is done, and we have to decide how to move forward for their sake." Trevor nodded, wiping a tear quickly from the corner of his eye before it fell. "You're right. You've done an amazing job with them, I can see that. I would like to be in their life, if you'd allow it." He looked up, almost pleading. "I know I don't deserve it, and it's so late, but I want to know them. And they deserve to know their father." This was what Simone had anticipated might come. She glanced over at Marcus, who gave her a slight nod of encouragement, as if to say, "It's your call." And indeed, it was. Simone had every right to shut Trevor out completely, given how he treated her. Yet, she wasn't a vindictive person by nature, and she believed the twins would one day ask about their father. Provided Trevor could be a positive influence and not hurt them, perhaps opening that door carefully could be good. If you are sincere, and you're willing to put in the effort consistently, Then yes, Simone said slowly. We can discuss a way for you to be involved in their lives. But, her tone sharpened slightly, I have to protect them. So, this will be on my terms initially. We can start with short, supervised visits and see how it goes. Trust will have to be built. Trevor nodded eagerly. Of course, anything. I'll do whatever it takes. Thank you, Simone. You're being more gracious than I deserve. Marissa then added quietly, we'll respect whatever boundaries you need. And, she gave a soft smile, I hope one day maybe all the kids can know each other. She patted her belly lightly. It was a strange, almost surreal idea. These half-siblings meeting one day, a blended web of families. Simone gave a cautious smile back, one step at a time, but maybe yes. Internally, she marveled at Marissa's maturity. Not every woman would be so understanding when faced with her husband's past, literally appearing with 2 toddlers. But Marissa seemed sincere, and perhaps even relieved that Simone wasn't a bitter wreck, but a competent mother willing to cooperate. They agreed to have a more detailed conversation later, in a few days or weeks, to work out specifics. And Trevor handed Simone his new number scribbled on a notepad so she could contact him. It was an oddly civil wrapping up of what could have been a catastrophic meeting. Simone's father, holding Isaiah now, gave a polite but firm nod to Trevor, a sort of fatherly will be watching you gesture, which Trevor respectfully acknowledged. As they all rose from the picnic table, tension released, something remarkable happened that added a touch of humor and humanity to the moment. Little Olivia tottered over to where Trevor stood, and, perhaps drawn by a subconscious recognition or just toddler curiosity, reached up for him with her tiny arms saying, up, up, apparently wanting to be lifted. Everyone froze for a split second, surprised. Trevor's eyes widened and then softened. He glanced at Simone for permission. She gave a slight nod, cautiously. Trevor bent down and gently picked Olivia up. The little girl smiled and patted his cheek innocently, then proceeded to tug at the tie he was wearing loosely with his casual outfit, as if fascinated by it. Marissa let out a small laugh, and even Simone had to chuckle. She likes to grab anything shiny or dangly, Simone said by way of explanation, referring to his tie clip. Trevor looked a mix of overjoyed and on the verge of tears as he held his daughter for the first time. Isaiah, not to be left out, wiggled in Grandpa's arms and blurted, up, up, too, reaching for his mom. Simone scooped Isaiah up, and for a moment, there they all were, 2 parents each holding a twin, facing each other. It was an emotional tableau that felt like closure and a new beginning all at once. Simone felt a lump in her throat at the bittersweet beauty of it. Life was messy and unpredictable, but sometimes it gave you these moments of grace. After a minute, Olivia squirmed to get down, spotting a butterfly she wanted to chase, no doubt, and Trevor lowered her gently. She's incredible, he whispered. Simone nodded in agreement. They both are. With that, they parted ways for now. Trevor and Marissa went to take a walk together, clearly needing to process this among themselves. Simone watched them go, Trevor's arm protectively around Marissa and her belly. He had that family after all, just not in the way he expected. Simone's parents walked ahead a bit, giving her a moment with Marcus, who had stayed quietly supportive. Marcus let out a low whistle. Well, that was a lot. Simone exhaled, a weight lifting off her shoulders. Tell me about it. She realized her hands were slightly shaking from the adrenaline dump after that confrontation. Marcus noticed and gently took her hands in his. You were amazing. I mean it. You handled that with such strength and grace, Simone. His voice was full of admiration. I don't know many people who could be that composed facing someone who hurt them so much. Simone felt tears prick her eyes, now that the storm had passed. I didn't feel composed, she admitted with a watery laugh. I felt like a mess inside. But I knew I had to keep it together for my kids. I couldn't let him see me crumble. Marcus squeezed her hands. Then, perhaps on impulse, he pulled her into a warm hug. Simone melted into it, realizing only now how much she needed a hug. She closed her eyes and allowed herself a brief moment to just be held. His embrace was strong and comforting, and she could hear the steady beat of his heart. After everything, this simple gesture of support meant the world. When they pulled apart, they did so slowly. Marcus looked down into her eyes, and there was something new in the air between them, an electricity that both felt and a tender understanding. "I'm really glad I was here to see that," he said softly. "You inspire me, you know. The way you've turned pain into something beautiful." Simone's cheeks warmed, and she found herself smiling genuinely. "I had help from family, friends, and maybe even from a certain someone who gave me the courage last night to face today." Marcus chuckled, happy to be that certain someone. Impulsively, Simone stood on her toes and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. "Thank you, Marcus." "For everything," Marcus beamed, touching the spot on his cheek with a playful look. "If that's my thank you, I'm going to have to step up my game so I can get more of those." Simone laughed, rolling her eyes, smooth. She realized with a flutter that she actually wanted him to kiss her properly, but this, probably, wasn't the moment. Her parents were nearby, and it was a public family event after all. Still, something in her had awakened, the part of her that yearned for companionship, for a partner who truly respected and cherished her. It had been buried under hurt for so long, but Marcus had gently unearthed it. The day was turning out to be unexpectedly transformative. Later that afternoon, with the heavy conversations done, Simone allowed herself to relax and actually enjoy the picnic. She introduced Marcus to more of her friends, many of whom gave her subtle thumbs-ups or winks, clearly approving of the handsome fellow by her side. They played a bit of frisbee, or rather Marcus did with some old classmates. While holding Isaiah, who giggled every time the frisbee flew, Simone and Jasmine sat on a blanket, watching Olivia toddle after bubbles that another family was blowing. Laughter returned to Simone's lips easily. It felt nearly surreal. A day that started with tension was now filled with simple joys. Trevor and Marissa kept a respectful distance for the rest of the event, though at one point, Marissa approached Simone alone while Trevor was speaking to an old teacher. Marissa expressed quietly, "Thank you for talking and not shutting us out." "I know that took a lot of grace." Simone nodded, appreciating it. "I think you can understand some of what I went through," Simone replied, her eyes flicking to Marissa's belly. "Trevor told me a little about how hard it was for you when you two tried at first. I wouldn't wish those feelings on anyone." Marissa's eyes grew moist. We actually had some trouble too," she confided, "which is why this pregnancy is so special to us. It took a year and some medical help. That's why I genuinely empathize with what you must have felt." Simone was surprised to hear this, but it also gave her a measure of peace. It sounded like Trevor may have faced a bit of karma, understanding that even a fertile marriage can have challenges. "I'm sorry you went through that," Simone said softly. They shared a look of mutual womanly understanding. "Take care of him and your baby," Simone added, "and make sure he treats you right. If he doesn't, well," she chuckled, "you know I won't stand for it." Marissa actually laughed a little, understood. It was a strange but healing conversation. They'd probably never be friends, but there was a respectful cordiality established. As the picnic wound down, people packed up their blankets and leftovers. The reunion events were coming to an end, and everyone was exchanging contacts and hugs. Simone realized she felt lighter than she had in years. She had confronted her past, laid down her burdens, and reclaimed her story. No longer was she the object of pity or the poor ex-wife. She was leaving this reunion as a proud mother, a strong woman, and maybe even a woman on the brink of new love. Marcus helped load the strollers into her parents' car and then walked Simone to her own car, where the twins' car seats were already installed. Simone's parents, understanding that Marcus and Simone might want a moment, offered to drive the twins home with them, which Simone agreed to. With a grateful smile, her parents winked at her, clearly supportive of Marcus. Isaiah and Olivia were sleepy from all the excitement and barely protested as they were, buckled into Grandma and Grandpa's car, driving off with little waves of bye-bye. Now it was just Simone and Marcus standing by her car in the golden afternoon light. Leaves from the oak trees swirled gently around in the breeze. Simone felt a nervous, excited energy, akin to how one feels at the very start of something wonderful. Marcus was similarly a bit bashful now that they were alone. He kicked at a pebble lightly and said, "So, I guess this is goodbye for now." Simone leaned back against her car. Not a goodbye, more like, "See you later." She smiled. "I mean, we still have to properly go on a date, without dozens of old classmates watching." Marcus grinned. "That we do. You name the day. I will happily take you out for a night on the town, or a quiet dinner, whatever you prefer." Simone pretended to think deeply. How about a quiet dinner next Friday? My parents already offered to babysit one evening if I ever wanted a break. I think I'd like to cash in that offer." Marcus's face lit up. "It's a date. I know a great little restaurant, farm to table, amazing desserts. You'll love it." A comfortable silence fell as they looked at each other. Finally, Marcus stepped closer, gently taking her hand. "I meant what I said earlier. You really inspire me. Today was, I don't know, kind of life-changing to witness. You showed me what resilience looks like." Simone squeezed his hand. "I had a good feeling about coming to this reunion, despite everything. I'm so glad I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reconnected with an old friend who feels like someone I've been waiting to meet." Marcus's eyes sparkled at her words, and he took that as encouragement to do what both of them had been inching toward. He leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Simone tilted her face up to his, her heart pounding in anticipation. In the next moment, Marcus's lips met hers in a gentle, sweet kiss under the canopy of that autumn-kissed tree. It was a soft kiss, but it conveyed so much: respect, care, a hint of passion held in check. Simone felt warmth radiate from where he touched her, one hand lightly at her waist, the other still holding her hand. She realized with a happy flutter that she hadn't been kissed like this in years. A kiss that was tender and patient, not demanding anything of her, just expressing feeling. When they slowly parted, both of them smiled, a little giddy. "Wow," Marcus murmured. "Just had to do that. I've been wanting to since last night." Simone laughed quietly. "I'm glad you did." They chatted for a few more minutes, reluctant to part, but eventually did so with another hug and the promise of Friday's dinner. As Marcus walked to his car, he turned and called out, "Text me when you get home, so I know you got back safe." It was a small thing, but it made Simone's heart skip. The thought of someone caring about her well-being like that again. She gave a thumbs up and waved, "I will." On the drive home, alone in her car for the first time in a while, no toddlers singing or crying in the back, Simone had time to reflect. The sun was beginning to lower, casting a warm glow on the streets and fields she passed. She felt like she was glowing too, from the inside out. What a journey these past few days had been. Honestly, what a journey the past few years had been. She thought about the timid, sorrowful woman she was when Trevor left her, how that woman could barely face the day. She thought of the painful nights, the self-doubt, the way she had let his cruel words define her for too long. Then she thought of the turning point, discovering she was pregnant, realizing life was not over but taking a different path. The amount she had grown since then was astonishing even to herself. She became a mother, learned to care for two little humans, and in doing so learned to care for herself again. She learned to push through fear and find joy in unexpected places. And now, she even found the courage to open her heart a crack to the possibility of love. Simone realized she felt empowered in a way she never had before. Not even when she was married and life seemed on track. Because that empowerment now came entirely from within and from the support of those who truly loved her, not from meeting some societal expectation or having a husband. She had carved out her identity on her own terms. She was a mother, an artist, a professional, a friend, a daughter, and, possibly soon, a loving partner to someone who valued her genuinely. Fertility or infertility, marriage or divorce, those labels no longer defined her worth. By the time she pulled into her driveway, Simone had tears of gratitude in her eyes. Her parents' car was already there. She entered the house to find her mom feeding the twins some mashed sweet potato for dinner, and her dad making goofy airplane noises to get Isaiah to open his mouth. The scene was everyday chaos, but it was hers. Simone couldn't suppress the broad smile on her face. "Why are you grinning like the Cheshire Cat?" her dad teased. "Good day, I take it." "The best," Simone replied sincerely. She leaned down to kiss her children's heads and then hugged her mom. "Thank you, Mom. And Dad, for everything. I love you." Her mom patted her hand knowingly. "We love you too, sweetheart. We're so proud of you." That night, after the twins were tucked in bed and her parents had gone home, Simone curled up on her sofa with a cup of chamomile tea. She felt at peace. She grabbed her journal, something she used to write in frequently during her healing process, and decided to pen down the events and feelings of this reunion weekend so she'd never forget the lessons learned. The page filled with her neat handwriting, recounting how facing Trevor, forgiving to a degree, but standing firm, had given her closure. How reconnecting with an old friend had sparked new hope, and how she realized that her worth was never tied to being a wife or mother alone, but to being authentically herself. One of the last lines she wrote in her journal that night was, "I am more than what I've lost. I am what I've overcome." She underlined it, then added, "And the future is bright." Simone slept soundly that night, filled with optimism. Whatever challenges would come, co-parenting discussions with Trevor, nurturing a new relationship with Marcus, balancing work and toddlers, she knew she could face them. She had learned to trust in herself and in the support of those who truly cared. As for Trevor, only time would tell how involved he would be. But Simone felt no fear. She would handle that too, one step at a time, ensuring her children knew they were loved by everyone around them. Perhaps Trevor did genuinely change after life taught him a lesson. If so, good for him. If not, Simone knew she and her babies would thrive regardless. The reunion that she once dreaded had turned into a celebration of her resilience and a catalyst for a new chapter. In a poetic twist, the gathering meant to reminisce about the past had actually propelled her forward into her future, one where she stood tall, no longer overshadowed by old sorrows. And that, my friends, is the power of writing your own story. Simone walked into that reunion carrying the weight of everything Trevor made her feel. Not good enough, not complete, not worthy. But she walked out knowing the truth. She was always enough. She just needed to believe it herself. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment like Simone's? A moment where you had to confront someone who hurt you and show them just how wrong they were? Or maybe you're still waiting for your moment. Either way, drop your story in the comments below. This community is all about lifting each other up, and I read every single one. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button. It really helps the channel and lets me know you want more content like this. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We post stories every week about resilience, redemption, and real people who refuse to stay down. Before you go, check out this video right here. It's another incredible story I think you're going to love. Same energy, same drama, same satisfying ending. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. You're amazing, and I appreciate you more than you know. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and never let anyone dim your light. See you in the next one.